Okay, so welcome everyone for joining us. I'm just going to slowly let people join in the webinar before I get going properly. Yeah, nice to see people joining. There's been a slight problem with the link. Some people haven't got the link, so we've just resent it out to everyone. Eventbrite's running a little bit behind. It was waiting in the queue there. So I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes for everyone to join in, and then we'll get going. So I'm seeing some familiar names coming up there. So Trevor, Murray, Alex, Barbara, Andrew, yeah, Matt. So people are starting to filter in and join. Literally, I'm going to give it a couple of minutes, and then we're going to get cracking with what we've got on. So a little over cap of what we're going to be covering. We are going to be using gels. We're going to be doing a little live shoot as well. After you have to appreciate, in these times we can't get a model in, so I've dragged Lisa, my wife, in to be the model. So it's all good fun, and we'll get some pretty cool images, but I'll explain all about that as we get going. A couple of seconds more. I can see loads of people are starting to filter in now, and then we can get going. One of the most important things is it's questions and answers. So if you have questions, please do throw them up. We have got Rod from Rotolight with us today, and we've got Matt from Wex. They're going to be answering questions in the background as much as they can, and I will try and cover as many questions as I can as well. We was inundated with questions last time, so it's good that we've got a couple of people on board. Right, on that note, we've got a nice couple of numbers coming in, so I think we'll get started, and I just need to share my screen. So again, how it'll work with the Q&As. If you've got a question, use the question and answers. If you've got a direct question for someone, then you can use the chat part of it. That's the easiest way to kind of explain how it works. So I need to just share my screen on one part, and then I can explain who I am, and then we'll get going on the actual workshop itself. So really excited about this. So bear with me. We're going to share a screen. I'm going to go for this. Okay, so for everyone that doesn't know who I am, my name's Robert Pugh, and this is my website. If you want to know more about me, then jump over to my website and have a good browse through. If you go down to the About Me, that tells you all about myself, and I have a section of what's in my camera bag, so you can have a good nosy at that as well. The blog is something I like to keep up to date, and we're always putting on there little tips as well. So there's one there on the headshots. So do head over to the blog and see what's going on. If you want to book onto any training, we do have a dedicated training section there. So head over to there. This is where we put all of our workshops. Now we're doing this in conjunction with Rotolight today. So again, just put in Google Rotolight and their website will come straight up. You can head over to their page. We'll be using these products today, mostly the NEO2 and the AEOS. That's what we're going to be using today. If you want to see more of their events, go to their events section. Now, normally this is absolutely full of events up and down the country, but obviously at this sort of strange time, what's going on, then we've had to diverse to webinars instead of live shoots. But make sure you keep an eye on this event section, because there is a wealth of workshops, webinars, events, and also where Rotolights are around the country at certain times of the year, like the photography show or the IBC show as well. So definitely worth keeping an eye on. Let me just go back, because I am going to stop that, and I'm now going to start another screen, and then we will get going. So I need to share my whole desktop. We will close this out. and then I can start get. Okay, so if hopefully everyone can see this slide. It's going to start off on a slide for the first 10 minutes. We're going to go through a couple of things. If you've been on the last 2 webinars, the first, say 3-4 slides are the same, and then it goes on to Chroma, that I like to call it. Then halfway through, we're going to switch over to the camera and we're going to do a live shoot. And I'm going to do two scenarios with 2 different setups as well. So stay on board and make sure you watch that. Very interesting when it comes to gels. So Chroma, this is me. If you don't know anything about myself, if you've not heard of me before, then my name's Robert Pugh. I'm an international wedding photographer. International is because I cover weddings all over. So wherever they are, that's where I go. My actual career started in the British Army. I was a sniper in the Fusiliers 2nd Battalion. You know, some might say looking through a scope and looking through a camera is the same thing, and I have to agree it pretty much is. I've always got a target and I'm always looking at someone, so that's a good way to put it. Equipment. So before I get onto equipment, there is some offers on today, so let me share those offers with you. These are what Rotolight have got on offer at the moment through Wex, and Matt from Wex, he will send out all the offers to everyone as well. So there's no need to get your pens and papers out and start jotting it down. Matt will send out a list of all the offers that's going up. Key ones to take into consideration here: the NEO2, the Neo barn doors bundle, and I would definitely say if you are going to purchase any of them, then go for these AA batteries that Rotolight do. They are specific for the NEO2. They're high capacity batteries, so they will last a long time on a running your NEO2s. If you just use cheap AA batteries, then they're just going to go flat as quick as you use the Neo. So make sure you use high capacity batteries. This is my standard kit that I use. I use the AEOS and the NEO2. And this is my equipment. So I use the Sony A9 II. I use an 85mm f1.8 and a 55 f1.8. I will be using the 55mm f1.8 today. That's kind of my preferred lens to use. So when I'm doing weddings, I could actually shoot the whole wedding on a 35 and a 55. I only actually use 3 lenses in total for all my weddings. So what are we going to look at today? So we're going to look at the color theory, gels and colors, planning and approach, 1 light setup, 2 light setup. And if we've got enough time, we will definitely try and do a 3 light setup. I'm going to show you some funky brackets that you can make, so you only need to use 1 stand with 3 lights. So we've got loads to get through. And again, if you've got any questions, make sure you use the Q&A section. If you use the chat section, I don't really see much of that when I'm doing presentations. The Q&As, I will see that all the time. Okay, so moving on, I want to talk to you about the color wheels. Okay, so there's actually 3 different types of color wheels, and you need to understand these before you can start playing around with gels. Okay, so the CMY, so the CMY color model, also known as a subtractive color model, is commonly used by visual artists. It demonstrates what happens when you overlap color pigments. So this is what I actually use for my shoot. If you've seen it at the photography show, where I use 3 lights with 3 different gels on, when the light hits the subject, they're lit perfectly, but then their shadows are all different colors. And we've got some examples of that as we move along. Now, It's like, think a bit about it when you go to B&Q and you want a certain kind of paint, and then you'll ask for the paint to be mixed. Well, they don't just throw in one pot and then it magically makes that color. They actually mix different colors of paint. So the paint is pure just colors. So they might put a yellow in, they might put a blue in to make a certain different colors. And that's where I got this sort of theory on, well, if I mix light, then I can create different colors from that light. So it's all very well you want a red background and you stick a red gel on, but maybe you haven't got that red gel. So if you use magenta and yellow, well, you'll get red. It's pretty much as simple as that. So if anyone does want this slide as well, then I'm happy to let them have the slide. We are recording this and it will go on the Rotolight YouTube, so you can watch it as many times as you want. If you do want the slide, then all you have to do is follow me on Instagram and then I will send you the slides as well. So how cool is that? Then there is the RGB, okay? So there's different color wheels, and again, you need to understand this to start mixing with different colors and different gels. The RGB, or additive color model, demonstrates what happens when colored lights on different wavelengths overlap, okay? So one thing to note here is when we put red, blue and green together, when they all overlap each other, do you notice how in the center it creates white? Okay, so this is a really good way of doing it. Like I said to you earlier, when I normally do my free light setup with the colors, it's normally cyan, magenta and yellow. But if you use red, blue and green, it can be done with that as well, and the shadows will come out as yellow, cyan and magenta. But what happens is the center part, where all three lights with the gels, where they overlap, it creates white light. So therefore, if your subject is within that center of everything crossing, they will be lit with white light, but behind them, their shadows will come out as magenta, yellow and cyan. So, and when you put the gels on the lights, the order that you put them on affects the color pattern as it comes onto the shadows as well. So it's always interesting to have an experiment. I'll tell you my theory on gels towards the end, on what I think and why I use gels as well. So the one thing we do have to look at is complementary colors, okay? So every color has a complementary color. So complementary colors sit opposite to each other on the color wheel. To identify the colors complement, first determine which color model that you're going to use. So obviously, if you're going to use red, then the flat complementary color of that is green, okay? Also, green bleeds into cyan. So if you're using red, you can actually use cyan as well. So they're complementary colors. That's the important thing to use. In the RYB model, for example, the complement of red is green, like I've just said. In the RGB model, red complement is cyan. So you can get these diagrams if you do a search on Google. Then you can get little charts that you can save onto your phone. Like I said, I don't mind sending this to people along with the charts, and then you can save them onto your phone. You can even get an app where it actually tells you the complementary colors. So when you're thinking of doing a shoot, don't just turn up to a shoot and think, oh, do you know what, I'm going to use red and yellow for this, because you know, it might not work. As long as you always use the opposite color, then that's always going to work. So if you're using red, use green or cyan, because those are the opposite colors to it. So get to know your complementary colors. And then this is the last color wheel, but this is the one that a lot of people don't really grasp and understand. So monochromatic, the term for monochromatic is often used to describe black and white images. However, it can also refer to the use of a single color or a shade of a color. So for instance, I might want to light, and we're going to demonstrate this soon, I might want to light an image with all red. So because I'm using all red, it creates different shades. There'll be black in there as well, because the darkest part of the colors will always go to black when using a red gel. So therefore it's a monochromatic image. Even though it's not black and white, it's still lit by two colors. It's lit by, you've got black, your shadows, and then you've got your highlights, which everything's going to be red. So therefore it's a monochromatic image. Hopefully everyone understands that. But you can easily light an image with one colored light, whether it's blue, whether it's cyan, whether it's red. For me, color it's about art. It's not about photography being right. So photography is very subjective when it comes to lighting. When you start using gels, this is the creative side of you coming out. So there is no wrong and there is no right. Nothing's lit correctly. It's about you separating yourselves from everyone else, and it's about creating something. So with an artist, they have a canvas, they've got the paint brushes, and some artists don't even know what they're going to paint until they're halfway through painting what they're painting. They'll just start with a blank canvas and they add color into it, and then they layer the color, and then finally the image comes out of the color. Okay, so to me, that is how I look at gels. We'll look at some examples on perfectly lit colors with gels, and then we'll look at some creative approach, and then also I will we're going to do a really creative out of the camera shot here. So I've just got a quick question that's come up. For weddings, do you use one body per lens to save lens swapping and getting the dust in the camera? So Peter, when it comes to weddings for cameras, I use one body and I swap the lenses all the time. I kind of know where and when I'm going to change the lenses. And also, when it comes to the cameras now, especially with the new Sony update, when you change the lens, the curtains comes down and it stops the sensor from being exposed. So when you take your lens off, you can't see the sensor anymore. So that was another good feature of it coming out. So what do you physically change when you change from RYB to RGB, additive to subtractive, or vice versa? We'll see that more when I do the shoot. So that question just come in. We're going to demonstrate that when I actually do the shoot. So you'll be able to see it come in more when we've got the live view from the camera, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's just go back to this. So this is a prime example of using three lights. So there is no white light, so it's cyan, magenta and yellow. They're on three flashes, and the flashes are right next to each other. I'm going to show you the brackets that I've made at the end of this slide to show you how it was all put together. But as you can see, they are perfectly lit, but their shadows behind are all the different colors coming through. So let me just get rid of that. This one used two colors on the background. So it's two lights placed behind. I'm going to demonstrate how you can do this with the background as well in a moment, and we'll show you how it's done. But basically two lights right behind it facing outwards. The worst thing you can do with, especially using colored gels, is put your lights on the outside facing inwards, because again, it's mixing paint. What happens is when those lights come in, when they cross, they will mix and create a different color. So if you've got them facing into each other, you're going to get more of a bleed. If they're next to each other facing outwards, then what happens is you get less of a bleed. And you can see this very ever so slightly on this shot. So if you look up at the top center behind her head, you can see a slight purple, but then it's red to one side, blue to the other. And that's because the overlap's just happening there, okay, because it's facing outwards. So this is, again, an example of YMC or CMY. So again, the light's hitting her, obviously because of her skin. Her skin takes a lot of light, so very nice to photograph. When it comes to white people, we tend to, if the light's too strong and it hits us, then we bleach out. Okay, so it's the opposite with darker skin. They can take a lot more light onto the skin. But we can see how the shadows have come off different colors. Now, the key to doing this as well is to have them as close to the wall as possible, because you want to create those really sharp shadows. And the only way you're going to do that is to have them close to the wall. And the light you want off to the, say, right-hand side of the camera, up high, 45-degree angles pointing down. But of course, you can change the direction of the shadow with moving the light up and down or around slightly. So you can play really nicely. And this is where constant light really comes into play, because if I was using flash with this, when the flash goes off, if the shadow was in the wrong position, then what I would have to do is I would have to move the light stand, adjust the light, retake the shot, and then maybe it's in the total wrong place. So I might have to take about 3 to 5 shots to get to that right shot. When it comes to the Neos with constant light, I just turn them on and put the gels on, and then what I see is what I get. If the shadow's going off a bit low, then I can just raise them down, because obviously if I bring the lights down, the shadow goes up. If I bring the lights up, the shadows go down. So you can actually get the shot exactly how you want it before you even take the shot, before you even lift that camera up. So okay, so this is another one that's lit by color. So as you can see, the gel on the background, we're creating that blue look. There's a white light on the front, and then there is a blue light hitting the back as well. Okay, so really nice to use that. I'm just going to get rid of that. This is another way of using color, okay, using gels. So this was a boudoir shot done actually in here. So a very small studio, you don't need a big place at all. And then we've used obviously white light, because white is still a color. So we've used white light. And then behind we've used a red light as well to give a nice glow to the background. And again, with color with this, this again was shot with 2 lights, and we've got blue hitting the background as well. So the actual light for this is, the background light is to the left-hand side, and it's scooting along. And then what we've done is we've adjusted our white balance. So by adjusting our white balance, we can get the background to blue, how we like it. And then our main light, we adjust the Kelvin to get that white light effect, okay? Okay, so this is another image that's been lit by gels, okay? So here we have, it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 5 lights lighting the scene, and only one of them is white light. Okay, so it's the beauty dish that's just above the model's head, angling down. That is what we call is the main light, the key light. So the reason, so Murray, the reason I haven't got behind the scenes shots for these lights is because we're going to actually demo how to do them. But if you want a behind the scenes shots for them, I will actually put together a PDF of the shots with the behind the scene sort of shots, how it's all put together with the lights, and then I will send it out to everyone. So in fact, I'll post it on my my Facebook business page, so everyone can grab it from there to help everyone out. So we've got a light down the bottom that's gelled facing up to fill in the shadows. We've got a light behind onto the background to give some separation, 2 lights either side just to give some fill onto the arms, and then 1 light above, that's actually the key light as well. And we'll show you how you can actually use 1 light to create an effect. Okay, so that's the goal, to start off 1 light or 2 lights. Let me just end this now, and we will go on to the next part. Okay, so now you should be seeing myself, and I just want to talk to you about some brackets before we get going. Okay, so when it comes to mounting the Neo, so I've got a Neo here. The great thing with these is we can plug them directly into the mains. They'll run forever, or we can use them on batteries as well. So this is on batteries, but we'll be plugging it into the mains. They have built-in gel holders, so we can take that off, and we've got built-in gel holders there. Now, coming to the gel pack, there's 2 gel packs that this one you actually get when you buy them. You get the standard gel pack that comes in it, and it's kind of a corrective pack that's in there. Then the other pack you can buy, this is the color effects pack, and it basically has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 gels in there, right? So all the gels are to the same diameter as the Neo, and they fit on there perfectly. Ones that I use the most, I use obviously the sort of the magenta and the off blue, the coral blue, and then I also use these ones. So these are frosted. Now think of it as a diffuser. Instead of putting modifiers on, what you can do is put one of these on the front, so this will diffuse the light coming through, and if you wanted it diffused even more, you can actually put 2 of them, and it'll soften the light up. So they're really handy to have in there as well. So do I use pink colors? When it comes to my colors that I would probably use the most, it's going to actually be red and green. And this is what we're going to use today, red and green. So we're going to use those ones as well. And just have a quick look at these messages just to make sure that I'm getting through them okay. Okay, now brackets. Obviously, I use a ball joint on top of my Neos. Using the ball joint, when I undo it, then I can move it around. It's very easy to place it where it wants to go. But maybe I want to use 2 lights at the same time, 2 Neos. And this goes to, say, light in the background or doing that free light look. So I have these brackets that I've made. So this one here, so this is an extension bar that you put on top of your camera. As a filmmaker or a creator, maybe you've got a monitor and then you want to run a microphone and something else, a light. Well, you would put this on top of your camera, and then it just extends your hot shoe so you can put other items on. So what I do is I've put 3 little spikes there. So these are like the Manfrotto standard threads that go on, and this will allow me to put 3 Neos onto one stand. So I can have 3 Neos onto one stand, and I can light all the different Neos with the different gels to get that effect that we was looking at, where all the colors are different on the background. So very simple to use, very cost effective, doesn't cost a lot, but it basically stays like that. And this is one of my go-to brackets when I'm being a bit creative and I'm using different lights to create different effects. Now, the other way to do it is my background light. So the same principle. So this is my background light. It's just, again, a metal bracket with the 2 different connectors, and this will allow me to have 2 Neos on one stand. So I can then have the Neos facing outwards on one stand, which if I've got one stand, it's easier to tuck behind maybe the subject or the person, and I don't need to then start photoshopping out loads of different legs, because if you've got 2 stands there with two different lights on, to kind of bunch them all together, you're going to see the stands popping out of the background either side of the subject. Yes, it's easy to get rid of in Photoshop, but I want to eliminate that. I want to try and get this right in camera as much as I can, and eliminate having to go into Photoshop and start editing and removing loads of things out. So Danny, will you let us know where to get the brackets and the parts from? Yes, Danny, I can let you know where to get these from. Now, Matt should be frantically searching the WEX website to look for all these different parts, and he will definitely send out links to where they all are on the WEX website. But I will definitely send a breakdown of how to make these brackets over to Matt, and then Matt has your emails and he'll be able to send it out to everyone, so you can do that. So no problem with that at all, Danny. So Terence, yes, all the bits can be bought from WEX. So how about the blue ball? Right, yeah, okay, so all the bits can be bought from WEX. They do sell them all. They're actually all Manfrotto bits. So everything's all Manfrotto bits. And this ball head, this is a Novaflex, okay? So it's a Novaflex ball head. And I believe WEX do sell Novaflex ball heads. And it's just got a Manfrotto adapter on there, so it can go onto the top of a light stand. But basically, once you have this, as soon as you turn it, then I can put it at a right angle, I can move it around, position it anywhere, and as soon as it's where it wants to be, I can just lock that straight off with a turn of there. So it's a lot better to use a ball head. So yes, Terence, you can get everything from WEX. So let's clear them off. And then finally, before we get started, I just want to talk about, so you're right, Nick Thatcher does the same thing with very cheap lights as well. So basically, to answer this question, what's good about the NEO2s versus you know, buying sort of cheap flashes or anything like that? Well, in my eyes, it goes to this scenario of what you see is what you get. I mean, we spend thousands of pounds now on these cameras, these mirrorless cameras. So when we look through them, we get this live view all the time of all the changes we make. But then when it comes to flash, we still have to guess if it's going to be correct, and we still have to take multiple shots to get to where we need to be. When you're doing shoots for product companies, which time is of the essence, you want to be productive and fast and to have a better turnaround. You also want your client to basically be able to see what you get. So I normally have a screen up, So whoever's sitting in, they can see themselves on their screen. And when it comes to the Neo2, when I light it, before I even take a picture, the client can actually see what the image is going to be like. I can see where the shadows are falling, where the light's falling, if the light's wrong. I can make my adjustments. So then when it comes to taking the actual shots, I'm ready to go for the whole shoot, not to keep my client hanging on. So that's the advantages that I would say using constant light over flash. So just to finish on, obviously, this part before we do the little shoot, the AEOS as well, you can get the gels for the AEOS. Again, it's just a little extra pack you can buy, and it comes with all the gels in. So it doesn't matter which lights you have, you can actually get the gels for them as well. And like I touched on base on the last webinar, using the trigger is always a good thing, even if you're using your lights in the sort of the LED setting and not the flash setting, because it means you can make all your adjustments on the fly using the trigger. So if you've got quite a wide setup with a lot of lights in, it's good to use the trigger to adjust that. And then the last thing I will say, and then we're going to set up and get this little shot done, is white balance is also a very big part in gels. So if you gel a Neo2 and you just take the picture and you think, you know what, that red, it doesn't look very, very deep, a deep red, then look at your white balance that's set on the Neo2. Because if you drop your white balance down or warm it up, it actually affects the color. So you can actually make the red deeper or less saturated by adjusting your white balance on the Neo while the gel's on. The other thing to take into a note is when using gels, you to get a much more vivid color, you use the lights on a lower power. So the higher power you go, the more light you're putting through that gel, the less vivid that color is going to be. It sort of washes it out. So if you want a nice vivid color, then you use them down on low power and you get that nice vivid color. So when it comes to, so Murray's just asking how much of the Neo's flash capability do I use? So I'm hoping to do another webinar just on Neos and the flash capability. If I'm to be really honest, I actually don't use the Neos for the flash side of it. I actually use them for the constant light. I probably rarely use the flash side of things, but that's only because my sole purpose is to use them to get the shots before I even pick up the camera. So I use them as a constant light source. I've used it a handful of times at weddings to get the dance shots in the evening, because when you use them in the flash mode, you get a modeling light that sort of is on all the time, so your focus will lock on quicker because obviously it can see the subject, and then once you hit the shutter button, then obviously then it'll flash and you get the exposure you want. So, but I also like to use the LED part when they're dancing. It's that same principle, because you're lighting the subject with the LED as you're taking the shot. Your focus is just acting like it's daylight, locking on straight away. It doesn't hunt, and you get the shot a lot quicker. So I do like using them in the evening for the dance shots. Right, we're going to set up now to do this little live shot. We're going to use Lisa. It'll get a little bit dark because we're going to turn some lights off over in the studio side, and I'm just going to set up the camera now. So let's just set up the camera. I'm going to have to share a different screen in a minute, and then we'll get things going and we'll do a little shoot with the lights, and I'll explain what we're doing as we're going along. So I'm using the Sony A9 II for this. and I'm going to use the Image Edge software to start it. So I'm just going to start up the tethering side of things, let that connect. And then we'll put this on this screen, and then we will start viewer as well. And I'll set up the screen, and then we can get started. Right, so let me share my screen again. Okay, so now you should be able to see my screen. So let's put this to about there. So David, yes, it's tethered in. So I'm using a Tether Tools cable, and it's plugged into the side of the A9 into the computer. So normally I actually don't use the cable. Normally I use, there's two ways we can do it. I use the Air Direct, which is a wireless tethering software that device that goes on top of the camera, and I wirelessly tether to the computer. Or with the A9 II, it's actually got built-in wirelessly tethering into it. So then I will connect to the computer via that way. The only reason I'm actually using hardwire at the moment is because we're running an awful lot of programs on the computer. So for me to run the wireless part of it as well, we're just asking ourselves for problems because we're running Zoom, we're running capture software with the camera that's seeing me, and umpteen other bits of software as well. So that is why I'm hardwired in at the moment. So let me just bring that down. We've got that there. No problem, David, happy to answer that. Okay, so you can see my camera and my settings now all on the left-hand side. So I'll just quickly answer this one. Rob, could you explain how you use the Rotolight for reception and first dance lighting? I'm looking to transition completely to Rotolight lighting now. I have an AEOS and yep, so I'll just quickly answer this for Alex, and then we're going to get on with the shoot. So when it comes to the first dance, so I will literally have a lollipop for the Rotolight. So I'm going to quickly just grab this so I can show Alex, because we all want to get these questions answered. So if you can see the picture of me at the top right hand side, if you can't, then it will be on a video, and I can demonstrate how you're going to see this later on. But I have this little handle, and then the handle sits on top of, so the Rotolight sits on top of the handle, so I've got that there. Then I can literally hold this above the couple as I'm taking the shot, and then on top of the camera I have the Electron trigger for the Rotolights. If you do it that way, then you can use the sort of the high-speed sync capability of the Rotolight, because Rotolight has a Skyport built into it. So this will enable us to, I mean, we could shoot up to 8,000th of a second if we like. I'm going to ask Rod a couple of questions near the end that I know people want to know on the Rotolight, but I think let's just get this shot done, and then I'll come back to that question. I will come back to the end. So you can see my camera settings here on the right hand side. We can change what comes in, so let's just change it to a JPEG. So it comes in, and we'll just go for a medium JPEG, just so it flies in nice and fast. Everything else here, the way we set up when we were working with Sony in this tethering, so this is Sony's own tethering software, the remote. So I name a folder down the bottom where it goes into. So if you wanted to use this with Lightroom, then you just set Lightroom to have a watch folder, and it watches that and it'll automatically bring it in, because Sony cameras don't directly tether into Lightroom. They do tether directly into Capture One, but I actually want you to see this live view here on the right hand side as I'm taking the pictures as well. So you get to see the image as we're building it up. If I just tethered into normal software, then we wouldn't have that live view. You won't be able to see it. So let's bring Lisa over, and we'll just sit Lisa down. I'm going to show you some little tricks on what we can do. So we'll just turn this light off for now.
Glasses, no glasses?
We'll stick the glasses on. And I'm going to turn this light off as well. So we're going to go into a little bit of darkness there, so we can see what's going on. We're going to go for once I've set the camera up, we'll do a little quick focus on Lisa. So just look over to that way, just there, perfect. Okay, so I tend to use back button focusing. And the reason I do this is because I've already focused on Lisa now, and that's it. I can just take every shot as I go on. There's no need for me to keep refocusing the camera all the time. So I'm going to get the first light set up, and I'm going to show you how we stick the gels on. So we've got the NEO2 here. It's got batteries in, but I'm going to plug it into the mains. I'm going to use a red gel on this. So I'm going to stick the red gel on, simply just pop it on, and then you pop the cover back on and give it a little twist. Okay, and that's it. So we've got the red gel all in place. I'm going to turn this main light off so you can get a proper effect of what's coming in as well. So let's see what's going to happen there. I'm just going to pop this on the stand. Right, so let's just quickly just turn this main light off, and then we can see exactly what's coming in. So I can look here and I can position to see where it's coming round. I can also adjust the height. I'm going to just take a quick photo there so we can see what's happening. And make sure that all comes in. So that's coming in nicely. So you can see how fast that just shot over. Obviously we changed it to a JPEG and a smaller image, but it appears instantly there on the left hand side. Now I'm gonna have to keep flicking over so I can see the questions. Rob, the model is in horizontal position. Yeah, unfortunately I can't change that because that's the capability of the software. Let me see if I can rotate. Oh, there we go. I'm going to take that back. So thanks for pointing that out, Danny. We can change the rotation of the software. So hopefully you'll be able to see her all fine there. Good shout out for that. Everyone would have had a nice sore neck for trying to look at that. So as you can see, we've got the lights hitting Lisa. We've got this lovely red glow of a light as it hits Lisa, and then it comes into the camera. Now, one of the things you do have to know when you are using gels, you do need to think ahead. So just stay looking like that, Lisa. No, that's that, perfect. So you need to think ahead of the colors. So when you look at the camera, the live view, we can see those lovely sort of reds, those vivid reds coming out. But then when you see the JPEG come in, the JPEG doesn't look as vivid. Well, there is a reason for that, because in my settings, just because of the way I edit, because I actually shoot JPEG for all of my weddings, I actually don't use RAW, I use JPEG. And I actually set all my saturation and contrast down slightly. So when it comes to me editing the JPEG, when I add my style on, that's the look you see on my website, that's the look I get. So I actually set in camera for it to be a little bit desaturated. So you need to think ahead to get the vivid colors. So all you're going to do is you're going to go into your vibrance setting, lift the vibrance setting up a little bit, and the saturation a touch. Don't go mad on the saturation. The vibrance is the key, and also your white balance is the key. So I want to show you about white balance before I move on. Now I'm at 5900 Kelvin now, but if I change it, now did you see that? I'm not adjusting the power, I'm actually adjusting the Kelvin setting. This is the color temperature. So now I'm at 6300 Kelvin. Look at the cheek on Lisa. So now I'm just going to go straight down to 3200. Now look at the cheek on Lisa. So you can see how the Kelvin alters the red tones in the gel. So at the higher end of the spectrum, at like 6600, we actually get this really nice even red light onto the cheeks. But if we go down, we get this kind of a little bit of a muddy sort of redness coming just below the bottom. So I like to set a sort of a mid-tone. I kind of go to about 5900 when I'm using a red gel, and it gives a nice tone to the skin. So let's think about if we was going to add another light in before we get this final effect, what could we do? So we looked at it before. So the opposite to red is green or cyan. Okay, so let's use a green or a cyan color to create our first sort of look, our first image. So I'm just going to get another Neo and pop it on a stand. I'm actually going to put a green gel onto this. Then we'll get a stand and we'll pop this on. So again, if you get any questions as we're going along, after we've done this one, I'm going to show you how to light the background with two different colors. Okay, so lights on, let's just turn it on. Now, when I turn it on, the strange thing is, I never adjust the power. Wherever the power was from the last setting, that's where I leave it. So I've just turned it on. We've got like this, it's a very pale green, more of an aquarry sort of green, but it complements the red as well. Now, looking at this, you can see it's a little bit bright on the left-hand side than the right-hand side. So this is where, I'm going to come around here, this is where having the light, what you see is what you get scenario. So bring that down. Okay, I can sort of handle that a touch. And then let's just bring that down to there. So, just take a quick shot. So now what we can see, looking at the live image, well, let me just have a look at some questions here. Raj, hi Robert, are you using frosted clear gels also, or just red and green gels? So good question, Raj. I hope I'm saying your name right. They're actually just red and green, so none of them are frosted, they're all just normal gels. With your ISO and aperture settings, why did you make this choice? Could you advise what the long support was for the NEO2? Okay, so Terence, why I picked the apertures that I'm using. So I'm shooting f2. The reason I'm shooting f2, so in my studio, I actually think of my aperture as a built-in Photoshop, okay? So the way that it works is Lisa is about a meter away from the background. So I've got a grey paper background that's up there. If there's any imperfections in the background, it'll show up straight away. If you're shooting at f8 or, you know, like 5.6, it's going to show up straight away. Now I want to create a depth to the image. I want her shoulder to go out of focus so we can see that her far shoulder is out of focus. Her face is in focus. And I want to create this depth to images. So if I shoot at f2, it's like having this built-in Photoshop where all the imperfections in the background disappear. And then from Lisa's nose, all her skin's all nice and smooth as it sort of dissipates over towards the background. So that's why I shoot at low apertures. If you wanted to shoot a lot higher apertures, say yours started at f2.8 or f4, then all you would do is raise your ISO up slightly to compensate for that as well. And then let me just read, could you advise what the long support? Yep, so I'm going to come back to that at the end, Raj, and let you all know. Sorry, Terence, that was, yeah. How close to the red Neo is the subject? So Martin, the red light is about, I'm going to do a wide shot on the camera at the end so you'll be able to see the exact setup. So it's about a meter away from Lisa. The red light is about a meter away from Lisa, and then the green light is directly behind her shoulder, okay, onto the background, and Lisa is about a meter away from the background itself. So I'm not using flash on this as well. So someone's just asked, am I using flash as well? No. So this is purely, everything is all constantly lit with NEO2. So I'm only using 2 NEO2s. Yeah, so David, so the first light, the red light, that's onto the model. Lisa, and then the second light, which is the green light, that is onto the background. Okay, so that is those questions answered there. So I'm going to switch on the light in a minute. I'll do a wide shot so you can actually see the setup. So for me, it's all about creating something. So I'm going to now. You need to be watching the live, the right-hand side of the screen now. Watch the live session. So I like my own personal work. I like to create something. Let me just read this last one from Trevor. What is the power settings of the NEO2? Trevor, I'm going to give that secret away. You're getting ahead of me. I was going to tell everyone that in a minute. So I will let everyone know, and people's minds will be blown. Let me do this one little trick and then we will get onto power settings. So what we're going to do So if you could see those images coming up, what I use is it's a little tiny bit of plastic, and it's got it gives like this rainbow effect. It's very small. Now, if you can get light to bounce off it on the right way, you can create some really stunning sort of light leaks. So as you can see on the left-hand side of the camera, you can see that this light leak will start to come into effect. And we get these rainbow colors coming in. So if you're trying to emulate film with light leaks or anything like that, then this is how we can do it. And again, it's about playing with color and introducing color. Using this little film, I'm actually introducing color into it. So another way you could do it, so I'm going to just get a gel. So now the color on the left hand side, that's me holding a gel coming over. So what I can do, you can see there, I can actually use gels in front of the lens to create a vignette effect. So that's another way of being creative with the gels. So I'm going to just turn on this light so you can have a look at the actual. Just going to take that last picture. Perfect. Glancing down, Lisa, there, stop there, perfect. Nice. There. Nice silhouette coming, then look over towards me, stop. That's it, just there. Okay, so we've got some really nice, interesting colors going on there. So let me switch this light on and let me just bring out the camera. And then we're going to go back to the background before we finish, because we are way over what we need to do. So let me just come out to here. And I'm going to do a little zoom out. Which you should get in there. Let's move this out the way. And then I can tell you where we are. So this light, this is the red gel light. The power setting on this is at 10%. Okay, so Trevor, the red light, the key light is at 10%. How crazy is that? That the key light is only on 10%. Everyone thinks when it comes to LED lighting that you have to put it all the way up to 100% or 50% power. I very rarely use these past 25%. So this one is on 10%. Okay, so that's the key light, a meter away from Lisa. If I'm to go to this background light, so now I'm just standing just behind Lisa. So this background light, this is on 6%. It's right behind Lisa and it's a meter away from the background. It's on 6%. So when it comes to the actual white balance, I'm going to come to that in a moment. Let's zoom me in slightly. So when it comes to both lights, they're both on 5900 Kelvin, okay, because that gave the nicest look to them. Someone's just said, but why wouldn't I use the native ISO? To be honest with you, I'm at ISO 640 on a Sony camera, on a full frame camera. There'll be no noise, nothing there. You won't even notice that. As a wedding photographer, I shoot at 6400 and above a lot of the time at weddings. So a native ISO is 100. And again, if you wanted to, you could just bring it down. You could shoot at ISO 100. All that would happen is the power of the lights then would compensate and go up. So if you shot at ISO 100, you'd probably then be working on about 50% power with the NEO2s. For me, I like grain in my image. So if anyone knows my work on my website, if you look, you'll actually see I actually add a lot of grain into my image. It's how I work. So I actually very rarely shoot at ISO 200. I'm always roughly around about 320, 640. That's kind of where I'm always shooting as well. So I hope that helps. It's basically just, it's personal preference. If you wanted to shoot at ISO 100, then you could put the Neos on 50%. If you wanted to run them at 10%, then you can put your ISO to like 640. And remember, this largely goes to if you're shooting with them plugged into the mains or on batteries. So if you've got them plugged into the mains, then by all means, put your ISO at ISO 200, say the native ISO, and then, you know, crank them up to 50% and shoot all day long. But if you run them on the batteries and maybe your shoot is going to last you all day, think about the batteries that you've got in the lights. If I just put my ISO up to ISO 640, it would mean I'm running my lights on 10% power, which would pretty much mean they're going to run on batteries all day long. Okay, so think of it like that. It depends on the scenario. Okay, I don't often have my lights plugged into the mains. I more often than not, I shoot with them on the battery mode as well. So let's just go on to the last quick shoot before we round this up. I know we're getting on, but everyone's still with us. We've got a good number of people, so let's do another shoot. So let's change this over. In fact, I'm going to leave it on this one so you can see what's going on as I just change some things around, and then we'll turn it onto the other screen and we'll go from there. So I'm going to use this bracket now. So again, all the parts are Manfrotto. This little arm here, these little brass connectors, and this arm here. So they're all Manfrotto parts. You can buy all the parts from Wex, no problems at all. And then at the end, once we finish this shoot, I will show you the lollipop setup that I use and how I attach the Rotolight to it. But I just want to show you lighting the backgrounds with one of these. So we will basically unplug this. I'm going to bring this round and drop it down so you can actually see me. Let's move that out of the way. Let's turn this off a minute, and then you'll see why I use this. So you should be able to see it there. So what you do, this just goes onto the light stand as normal. Okay, and now that's set it all up. So when it comes to gels, I've got a red gel on, so that can stay on. So then this light will go on one side. And let's just get another light from the background and show you how this all works. Move that out of the way. And this is where the Neos really shine, you know, using them on the battery scenario. So I've just unplugged them all. We're going to use everything on the batteries. So again, I'm going to put in a flat blue for this. We'll just stick a blue in. Just have a look at this question. Robert, I just want to say thank you to you, Lisa. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate you coming on board and watching this as well. So this light comes on here. Now I have two Neos mounted on both stands, but what I'm going to do is we are going to angle one out and one slightly out. Okay, so you can basically see they're both angled outwards, and this is going to be my background light. So I'm just going to move it around to the back of Lisa, and we will drop it down slightly. We'll turn them on. set them both to the same power because they're next to each other. So we're both just going to go on to 10% power and both behind Lisa. Right, now let's go back to the camera. We'll switch the light off and then we'll be able to see what's going on. Okay, thanks Dave from Northern Ireland, sorry. Thanks Dave, appreciate you being on here. So let's just quickly share my screen again. And turn this last light off so we can see what's going on. Okay, so now you can see, let's just take a quick shot. So that comes in, there you go. So now you can see how we're lighting the background with two lights. And we've got an even split of lights there that's coming up. Just to confirm, just confirm to do this, you want to be in a room with no natural, no, not at all. So Serena, I hope I've got your name right. So you said that just to confirm, not to be in a room with any natural light. No, I mean, there can be natural light coming in, but the more white light that comes in, it's going to wash out the effect. It's not going to have a much more vivid effect. So to have a nice vivid effect, then you want to control the light. So the more ambient light you get rid of when you are using light, then you're going to see more of it and it's going to be more vivid. And you can basically see where it's falling. For instance, if I'm doing a wedding in the evening, and I want to do maybe an effect, maybe I want to put a blue gel behind. Say you're doing the shot where they're standing at out in the front of the main reception building, and you want to do that shot where someone puts a flash behind and the flash goes off and they're illuminated. Well, for me, using the Neo is a much better approach to do that, because if I put a Neo behind them, if I've got the trigger on top, then I can go off a distance and then I can see the exact outline that I'm going to get from them. Then I can adjust the power setting of the light from the camera and turn that up and down. I can instantly see if it's going to be correct. But what I can do is I can put my camera's Kelvin to match all the tungsten light coming out the windows of the premises, so it's lit correctly. And then on the light itself, I can stick a gel. Maybe I stick a blue gel to give them this blue outline, or maybe I stick an orange gel on to give them this lovely glow, this lovely orange glow from behind them, and create this lovely separation light. Okay, thanks Murray, good to have you on board as well. So yeah, so if the walls are color different, Matt, and you're bouncing the light off the walls, then obviously it still affects it, because it's white light coming from the Neo. It hits, say, if it's an orange wall, then it creates a color cast. But what you can do is you can match the Kelvin to the color cast that's coming off the wall. So at least then when the light comes off, it's correctly exposing the couple, and if you put the right Kelvin in your camera, then it'll be white light that's coming off there as well. So that's kind of how you do. Let me go back to the computer so I can wind this up for you and turn this light back on. And let's just go back to myself there. So there you go. That's how you light a background with two Neo lights. And it's also how you get creative with using the NEO2s and gels as well. So we have run over loads. I do just want to ask Rod a question when I go to the panelists. I'm just going to unmute you for a minute, Rod. So can you hear me, Rod?
Yes, I can.
So one of the questions that came up quite a few times is, does the NEO2, does it have a guide number like flashes?
So if you go onto our website, you can see that we publish the full photometric data on the light. I think the one thing, as you've kind of alluded to, Rob, yourself on the chat today, is that with modern mirrorless cameras, guide numbers were created and are based on an ISO of 100, and it's not necessary with the current quality of sensors on mirrorless cameras to shoot everything at ISO 100. As you've seen today, you can happily shoot 400, 648, 800 without any issue whatsoever. And so working with LEDs is a little bit different. What I can say is, we specifically on the distances, we publish f-stops at 3 feet, 6 feet, and 9 feet, and you'll happily be able to work with NEO2 ISOs of 200, 400, 800, and achieve beautiful results with it. So it's not quite the same thing, because obviously continuous lighting, as you're working today, is not quite the same as guide number, etc.
Yeah. I think that's important to mention, and that's what I kind of like to get across, that with cameras nowadays, how the sensors have evolved, that noise and high ISO, I mean, it's kind of a thing of the past. You can quite happily shoot at ISO 1600 and it'd have no effect on the image as well. And we're definitely moving towards that, what you see is what you get scenario, especially when it comes to constant light. So we can use these lights to get the shot we want a lot faster and a lot easier set up as well.
That's right. I mean, to give you a specific sense, so you had the light set up at 3 feet for the key light, and you were using it just at 10% ISO 640. If you turn that light up to 100%, then giving some of the numbers I have here, for example, you could shoot, if you wanted to shoot as low as ISO 200, you could get f8, at 3 feet at a 60th of a second. If you had the ISO at say 400, then you could get to f11 on it with the NEO2, which is the least powerful light in our range. So there's plenty of power. It's the brightest on-camera LED on the market, but it has more than enough power for the current generation of mirrorless cameras.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And that's, it's my preference to actually shoot with them at 10% power. I mean, for a wedding photography, the way that I use them, especially a NEO2, I have it set up as though it's a reflector. I have it on a handle, and I use the NEO2 at weddings as it's a reflector. And because we can adjust the white balance, if I'm in a room doing a bride shot and we've got that lovely window light coming in, and that's hitting one side of them, say the makeup's being done, because normally the makeup artist always does the makeup near the window, but then we've got this shadow on the other side of us. So if we get a NEO2, we simply set the white balance to 5600 Kelvin, which is daylight, and then we introduce that on like 10% power on the right hand side, and we fill those shadows in, and we can get that stunning image straight away in camera, instead of going to Lightroom or Photoshop and thinking, oh, I'll lift the shadows up there, because then that lifting the shadow up affects the whole scene, and you get into the scenario that you've got to start creating masks and concentrating on just one side of a face. As where with the Neo, it's literally a 2-minute job just to put it on 10% power, add it into your shot, and then away you go. So I'm just going to mute you now, Rod, for a moment. I'm just going to get to the Neo while the screen's on me. I'm going to show you how it attaches to the Lollipop, how I use it as a reflector, and then I think we will call it a day. So let's grab one of these, turn that off. So this little handle here, this is a Lastalite handle. I've had it a while now. So Wex will send out, or Matt from Wex will send out a list of handles that you can use with the Neo. Rotolight do a handle as well, but their handle is what I'm going to call, it's static, so it doesn't extend. The reason I use this, so that's how I use it. It sits on the handle like this. I have the ball head still attached. So if I want to move it off to the side, you see how, and that way, if I'm holding it down, I can angle it up to add the light in. But the reason I use this handle is because if I flick, we can extend it, and that allows me then to, you know, hold it a bit further out to let a bit of light in, or hold it up onto the couple as we're taking the picture. So it's just for speed instead of having a stand with me all the time. I will just have this tucked in my bag, and where I can just pull it out and I can just take a shot straight away. So this little concoction with the handle and the ball head, it works really well for me as a wedding photographer, and that is how it lives in my bag and goes everywhere with me. So like that. So I hope that's helped. I'm just going to unmute Rod and ask Matt to come in as well. So Matt, are you there?
I'm here, Rob. Yeah, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Matt. So is there anything that you'd like to add, Matt? Anything that you want to cover?
No, just to say thanks so much to you and to your wife and to Rod. Appreciate you giving us this time, and to all the attendees who've joined us, many thanks. As I mentioned on chat, I'll be sharing some links after the session, and if there's any questions that you have after the event is over, then feel free to email events@wex.co.uk. We'll jump on that for you.
Cool, brilliant. That's brilliant, man. And Rod, is there anything that you would like to add before I end this?
No, just to mention, obviously, we've got some fantastic offers with Wex. So if you are interested, you know, as Matt says, get in touch. But otherwise, to say thanks, Rob, to yourself, and thanks everyone for tuning in. And you know, we hope we might be able to bring you some more of these seminars. So keep posted and keep looking out on everyone's social channels for more seminars to come up.
Brilliant stuff. Well, thanks a lot for Rod and Matt for taking the time out as well to come on board and answer the questions and sort everything out. Thank you to all of you for coming along and making this happen. So watching and all your questions and answers, we love all of those, so it keeps us going. And also thanks to Lisa for jumping in and being a model. If you do have any ideas that you want to see things happen in the future, flash workshops using the NEO2 AEOS workshops, then do direct that over to Rotolight and Wex, and I'm sure that'll make that happen. Keep an eye out on the Rotolight events page for more coming up, and head over to my website as well, and make sure you follow me on there. And my social network links as well, because I'm always posting when we're doing these events. So on that note, we've run way over, but hey, you know, it happens as long as it keeps us all busy in this bit of a crazy time. So from me, keep safe and keep on taking pictures. I hope to see you all soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Cheers. Bye.